The National Museum of Afghanistan is the main repository of the art and artifacts that tell the story of the unique historical and cultural heritage of Afghanistan.
تمام آثاری که در نتیجه حفریات از دوره‌های سنگ قدیم تا عصر حاضر به وجود آمده است، حوزه‌های مختلف معرف هویت، تمدن، هنر، زیبایی‌ها، زشتی‌ها، کمی و کاستی‌های دوره‌های مختلف زندگی مردم افغانستان است. نه تنها افغانستان امروز، آریانای قدیم، خراسان دیروز این مرا به معرفی میگیره. پس به نظر من ارزش موزیم افغانستان برای مردم افغانستان بلکه برای جهان بشریت بسیار مهم است.
Since 2012, the Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures at the University of Chicago has worked in partnership with the museum in Kabul to document and protect the Afghan past through several projects. It began with the creation of a digital database that would inventory the entirety of the museum collections. Others followed, such as the Mobile Museum Initiative, and especially the Hadda Sculptural Project. Hadda is one of the most important archaeological sites in Afghanistan. Located 10 kilometers south of Jalalabad, near the Khyber Pass, Hadda was a major early Buddhist pilgrimage center with magnificently ornamented monasteries, stupas, and shrines where Buddhist monastic life flourished from the 1st to the 6th century CE.
It's an important site also because it was mentioned by the Chinese pilgrims of the 5th and 6th century going there, and they made sure to notice how big and how many sculptures were there and the kind of visionary experiences they had there. So that kind of historically, it's a very important site. I think it's really important to think of Hadda as part of this greater Gandharan connection and as an important and vital part of the Buddhist conquer, I would say, of Central Asia and then of Eastern Asia.
Due to its religious importance and location on the Silk Road, Hadda played a key role in the spread of Buddhism from India across Afghanistan as far as China. It was first surveyed and excavated in the 19th century by the English explorer Charles Masson. Between 1926 and 1929, Hadda was systematically excavated by the French archaeological delegation in Afghanistan, whose archaeologists discovered literally thousands of sculptures ornamenting the monasteries at the site.
At the first step of archaeological excavation led by Batu in 2 years was absolutely impressive because he was alone in Afghanistan, alone to represent science and the DAFA at the time, but also alone because the legation of French was not still good in place. So he, in 2 years and in very difficult condition, he conducted huge excavations, and it is him who revealed 6 of the 9 major monasteries.
45 years later, in the 1970s, the Afghan Institute of Archaeology resumed the study of 2 of the monasteries at Hadda, the most important of them, Tepe Shotur, where Afghan archaeologists uncovered the splendor of the earliest phases of this Buddhist shrine. The sculptures of Hadda were outstanding manifestations of the Gandharan style, a fusion of Greco-Roman and Indian art in a unique creative synthesis. East met West at Hadda, where the features and characters depicted reflected both worlds. A famous example is the representation of Vajrapani, a fusion of the Indian deity with the Greek Heracles, shown here as the protector of Buddha. Archaeological work at Hadda stopped in 1979 due to the Soviet invasion and 10-year occupation of Afghanistan. Shortly after the Soviet withdrawal in 1989, As civil war engulfed the country, the National Museum decided to safeguard 23,000 of its most valuable objects, including many of the most precious pieces of sculptures from Hadda, by secretly hiding them in the vaults of the National Bank in the Presidential Palace in Kabul. The archaeological work would never resume in Hadda, which was vandalized, looted, and destroyed by fire during the Afghan Civil War, which ended with the Taliban's first takeover of Afghanistan in 1995. The destruction of Hadda's legacy continued later inside the galleries and storerooms of the National Museum. From the beginning of 2001 through March, when the destruction of the giant standing Buddhas of Bamiyan took place, the Taliban systematically searched the museum in Kabul and smashed more than 2,500 statues from different collections. Among them, they vandalized hundreds of sculptures from Hadda.
تا جایی که ما احصا گرفتیم بین 2500 الی 2750 اثر تخریب شد از تمام کلکسیون‌ها. یک فاجعه بود. ما این را تقبیه کردیم، تقبیه میکنیم و تقبیه خواهیم کرد. چرا یک اثری که از بین میره ولو پارچه از اون را با هم یک جا بکنیم و اصالت اصلی خود نمیتونه دوباره به دست بیاره و یک اثر که از بین میره برای همیش. در حقیقت ما یک بخشی از تاریخ خود از دست دادیم.
After the Taliban's iconoclastic attacks, 7,600 fragments of the stucco sculptures from Hadda were secretly swept up and carefully hidden in 12 metal trunks inside the basement storerooms by the curators and staff of the museum, who courageously risked their lives to preserve these surviving pieces.
در جنگ‌های سال 1980 و 81 وقتی که به علیه قوای روس صورت گرفت با که در اینجا اول این آثار غیر منقول حدا غارت شد، بعد از روی را آتش زدن تخریب شدن. بسیار با ارزش آثار موزیم بود که در جنب سایر کلکسیون ها تا 2001 در موزیم ملی حفظ می شد. ولی زمانی که در اوایل 2001 طالبان تصمیم گرفتن که آثار تجسمی موزیم که به عنوانی که گویا حفاظت از خلاف شریعت اسلام است تصمیم به تخریب از گرفتن، یا قسمت زیاد آثار حدا که بهترین آثار بسیار ظریف منحصر به فرد بود دیره به تخریب از اقدام کردن. ما بسیار خوشحال هستم که آثار موزیم بهترین آثار حدا را ما داریم فعلا هم، و خوشحال به هستم که شعبه ترمیم ما، دیپارتمنت ترمیم ما با ترمیم مجدد از اقدام کردن به همکاری نهادهای فرهنگی بیرونی هم که ما حمایت از او را داشتیم. تخریب آثار نه تنها از کلکسیون حدا بلکه از سایر کلکسیون ها هم یک ضایع بزرگ فرهنگی در تاریخ افغانستان و یک فاجعه بزرگ فرهنگی است به نظر من.
In 2016, 4 years after the University of Chicago team started working in the National Museum, the staff came to trust us enough that they finally revealed the secret of the 12 hidden trunks of Hadda sculptural fragments.
The beauty of the artifacts and the bravery of the curators was, it just hit me that we have to do something. We have to do whatever is possible for us to do to save this collection. And by that, I mean, if it's at all possible to restore these sculptures, to try to reassemble them and save at least something of the damage that had been done to them, then it's absolutely worth our effort to do this, even if it seems, very difficult or even impossible. It's worth trying, because otherwise this information and these objects will be gone forever.
The next year, in 2017, the National Museum of Afghanistan and the University of Chicago's Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures jointly organized the Hadda Sculptural Project. It was an ambitious initiative whose goal was to preserve and reassemble as many as possible of the smashed stucco sculptures from the thousands of fragments that still survived.
The goals of the project were very straightforward. First of all, we wanted to clean and stabilize as many of these fragments as we could. because they were in a very fragile state. They were made out of this kind of stucco, and once broken, it can decay, and did start to decay significantly. So we wanted to clean and stabilize the fragments. Then we wanted to figure out how many sculptures were there originally, and how many got smashed. Then we wanted to do everything we could to document the collection with photographs and with descriptions and analyses by conservators and art historians. And then the most tangible thing was we wanted to reassemble as many of those sculptures as we could.
In order to do so, conservators from National Museum and the National Institute worked closely together. The metal trunks filled with fragments were moved to the National Museum's Conservation Laboratory as the center of operations. There, in the first phase of the project, the fragments were sorted and laid out on the laboratory tables by type, features, and techniques. Human heads, faces, body parts, animals, and architectural elements such as Corinthian capitals crowded the tables of the lab.
We had these long mornings of looking for joins between the fragments, and we were able to find between 10 to 20 new matches between fragments per day if we were lucky and consistent. So it was I remember it was such a painstaking task, and you had to be very focused, very driven, and not to feel overwhelmed by all these thousands of badly damaged fragments.
Many of the fragments from the exterior surfaces of the sculptures still preserved painted colors and even gold leaf decoration. Each fragment was treated, cleaned, and stabilized to guarantee its preservation. As we were able to find joins between the fragments, the sculptures slowly started to live again.
I never dreamed before to start this project to arrive at that point, at least, because when we opened the trunks where the fragments was stored, at least we have thousands of, I don't know how to call, but like the dirty stones or staffs. And then little by little, literally, we obtained again a collection of sculptural collection. And I think that it's an incredible result, really. And all of us, and I mean all the OI team and the NMA team, can be proud about that, because we give to the scientific world, we gave back an important part of an incredible collection.
How many sculptures were there originally, and what did they look like? Without photos of the original sculptures, reassembling them from thousands of fragments was like trying to solve a large 3D jigsaw puzzle without the photo on the box as a guide. The experienced eyes of conservators, curators, archaeologists, and everyone involved in the project were crucial to the painstaking first phase of finding matches. But soon, a surprising find would speed up our work dramatically. In 2019, the Hadda researchers got a lucky break. We were able to gain access to a trove of archival material related to Hadda. During the civil war in Kabul between 1989 and 1996, the museum was heavily damaged, and as a result, 90% of the records were burned. None of us suspected that among the surviving records, more than 1,600 pre-war registration cards preserved original photographs and descriptions of Hadda sculptures.
Apart or on the side from these documents, we also were able to access some old photographs that we found also in the photography department in the museum. So with all these documents that all of a sudden in 2019, we were able to find, bearing in mind that the project had started like 2 years earlier, compared to those previous years, we were going to do major or much substantial progress on the work. In 2019, the speed of the progress of the work increased radically thanks to the find of these inventory cards.
These records, as well as old photographs, pre-war catalogs, and archaeological reports, gave us the first clues to which sculptures had been smashed and what they looked like when first excavated by the archaeologists. This not only accelerated the project of reassembling sculptures, but also provided us a good sense of how many sculptures had been damaged and lost. Cutting-edge technology such as 3D scanners and digital models were used to record and virtually restore the sculptural fragments in a way never done before. IT specialists working with the Chicago team developed customized 3D modeling techniques to visualize and, in some cases, digitally reassemble the Hadda sculptures. The project was only possible thanks to a strong collaboration with the National Museum of Afghanistan. The training component and capacity building for the National Museum staff were always a key factor for the success of the project. Proper equipment and training were essential as well. 2 specially focused workshops on Hadda were conducted in Kabul, with participants from the museum, the Afghan Institute of Archaeology, and the Kabul University.
Yeah, actually, the main goal or the main objective of these collaborations actually is to work with, hand in hand in collaboration with our partners, so efficiently that at the end of the project, when we are leaving, because we always have to leave, the grants come to an end and people leave, they are able to work by themselves with these tools, and they're absolutely, able to work efficiently on their own.
The team had to leave the country due to the COVID pandemic in March 2020. Since then, the project continued remotely. Documentation and study were the priority activities. During this time, we conducted 3 more training workshops online. After the Taliban takeover in August 2021, our hopes of returning to Kabul vanished, and the team continued to work remotely with its original international team. The work focused in organizing and processing the information and data collected in Kabul in order to make it accessible to a wider public in the future.
The Hadda project was very challenging in a number of ways. We were a group of international specialists living in Kabul in the middle of a war zone, working in collaboration with our Afghan colleagues at the museum under incredibly difficult conditions, just going into the museum every day. We varied the route taken to the museum every day and the times that we'd left, just all of this for security. So it was challenging is a polite word for what it was like to work under those conditions. And it was as much diplomacy in maintaining a good working relationship with our colleagues as it was a technical problem. And the beauty of it, and the thing that is very, very encouraging to me, is that everyone on the project and the international team were completely committed to this mission of doing this right. Everyone understood how important it is and that this might be the only chance to ever rescue these pieces.
By the time the Taliban closed in on Kabul in 2021, the Hadda Sculptural Project had at least partially restored 487 sculptures from Hadda to give us a unique perspective on life, art, and religious beliefs in early Buddhist Afghanistan 1,500 years ago.
Now that the project is completed is to publish our data online and hopefully in a published paper volume, so that this information can be available to heritage specialists, to conservators, archaeologists and art historians all over the world. And if we can do that, then we will have saved or rescued, I should say, a very significant part of this collection that was thought to be destroyed forever.
After 6 years of painstaking conservation work, these irreplaceable works of art have finally been restored to their proper place in the National Museum. The Hadda sculptures survive to once again tell the story of a remarkable chapter in the cultural heritage of Afghanistan, the Silk Road, and its broader contribution to the world's civilizational history.